enjoy their Halloween, and I'm sorry that we're not there to be with them, but that's the nature of what we're doing. All right, any issues for the state?
Just briefly, Judge, I know the defense has shown several photos, or they made us they notified us of several photographs and videos they're going to show during the presentation of the next witness. In general, we don't have any objection to most of that, as long as it's relevant to the defendant and the victim in this case as far as the relationship. However, I think there are going to be some things where it goes kind of astray from I guess the case at hand. I know I've seen a picture of a sonogram. Don't know how that would be relevant whatsoever. A picture of, I know we've been provided several pictures of the deceased child with other family members not relevant to this case, cousins and things like that. And so I would object unless it's something relevant specific to the relationship between the defendant and the son, or something else relevant about the child's development.
Anybody want to say something?
Sure. We'll let them take a look at the pictures that we intend to show. The videos, there were not that many. They were very short, and I think State's already seen those. As far as the sonogram goes, we do have an image of a sonogram. As far as the nature of the relationship between the parties, Mr. Harris was exceedingly happy when his wife was pregnant. They were very happy about having a child, and so that would be a natural part of sort of the beginning of the relationship. So we think obviously it's relevant to tell the entirety of the story. That is one image. We're marking the rest of them now. If the court wants to give us just a couple of minutes for us to finish marking, we can let them look through it real quick. I think most of the rest of the images we intend to show are primarily Ross and Cooper. Some may have his wife in there, but I think primarily they're Ross and Cooper. We've tried to get everything together this morning, but
y'all are just looking and have to object as things come up.
Yes, sir.
And as to the sonogram, preliminarily, what they said, well, I would open to that. So you know.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm sure you're wanting to know how to proceed with objections and such on sensitive matters. I assume that's where you're going.
Yes, ma'am.
That's reasonable. Do you all want to wait a minute and look at what they've got, or can we move further?
honestly, if we had 5 minutes, I think we'll be through marking it. And because he's seen them, I think he can whip through them pretty quick. Is that fair?
Judge, what we can do when we get to it, we can go ahead and start, and then when he hands them to me, if I have any that I think are irrelevant or something, I'll pull them aside and then ask if we can approach and put my objections on the record to a specific one.
I'm fine with doing that. Anything else before I bring the jury in?
No from the state.
No, bring the jury.
Let's all rise for the jury, please.
While they're coming in, I understand congratulations are in order to Mr. Howard's granddaughter pass the bar.
Please be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's good to see you this morning. Good morning. Good morning. We are ready to resume with the defense of the case. Mr. Concord, please proceed.
Thank you, Judge. We'll call Leanna Taylor. She's in number 8.
I'm ready.
Have a seat, please.
morning, Leanna. I know you're a little nervous. Yeah? All right, so let's test this out. Say good morning back. Let's see how you sound.
Good morning.
Okay. Deep breath. All right. Are you Leanna Taylor?
I am.
All right. Did you used to be Leanna Harris?
I did.
Are you Cooper's mom?
I am.
Tell these folks a little bit about Cooper.
Cooper was the sweetest little boy. He had so much life in him. He was everything to me. He loved to smile. He loved to play. He would talk to and smile at anybody. It didn't matter if it was a stranger or not. He loved to play with cars. He was really fascinated by trucks and cars. And he loved bananas and just running around, get tickled. I mean, he was just like any other toddler. He was so even, he was so even-tempered. Just everything about him was just very laid back, very chill, very go with the flow. And he was just amazing. I mean, I miss him so much.
And Ross was his dad.
Yes.
I want to talk to you a little bit, Leanna, about the nature of the relationship between Cooper and his dad, okay?
Okay.
All right. If you could, tell these folks to the jury just what kind of dad Ross was.
He was a very involved dad. It was 50-50. Everything was split down the middle. It wasn't just a mom do everything kind of parenting style. We were both very involved. Diaper changes, baths, putting him to bed, meals. Everything was very even, very split as far as that's concerned.
Was he proud of Cooper?
Very much.
Tell us about how he how would he treat Cooper in public or around strangers?
Like I said, Cooper was very friendly to everybody. So he would smile at strangers, wave at strangers. And Ross would often just point him out, yeah, that's my boy. That's my baby. He talks to everybody.
What about when you were in restaurants or the grocery store and Ross would be with Cooper and y'all would interact with people that you didn't even know?
It's the same. I mean, Ross would talk to anybody, and he was very, very friendly, outgoing. And so if anybody, made notice of Cooper, which they did because he was a very cute baby, very cute kid, he would, that's my little boy. He's, so much old. He just loves to smile at everybody.
It's fair to say Ross liked showing Cooper off. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
I want to talk to you a little bit about sort of the time that they spent together. Did it appear to you that Ross tried to find ways to spend time with Cooper?
Yes.
All right. Can you tell us about that?
He was home most every night for dinner. We ate dinner as a family. He was involved in, feeding him when before he started feeding himself. He would feed him, I would feed him. Bath time, involved in bath time. I did give him a bath a lot of the time, but Ross enjoyed giving him a bath as well. And we would just play around the house. He'd get his toys out and run around with him. He had a big red ball that he loved to play with, and he would throw that up and around, and they would toss that together and play chase and watch TV. And read books.
Okay. Was it typical for Ross to just shove Cooper off on you? You to have to take care of him at night?
No.
Tell us a little bit about what kind of time they were able to spend together outside of the home. What sort of things would Ross and Cooper do together?
We went to the parks a lot. Just to go to the parks and swing and slide. And we went to several Braves games, sometimes with friends, and took him to that. He always enjoyed that. We went out to the aquarium, went to the circus. Wherever we went, he went. We didn't go out without him very often.
Tell us about how Ross would be with Cooper, say we went to the park.
He wanted to be the one to push him in the swing. He wanted to be the one to slide down the slide with him. He wanted to be with him, enjoying every second he could with him.
He was involved.
Very.
You mentioned Braves games. Did Ross ever take Cooper to the Braves games by himself?
Yes, once.
And did you and Ross ever discuss why he would take him to the games, or why he wanted to take him to the games?
It was something that he could do with him, that they could share together. I don't know if we ever really discussed it, but the particular time that he took him by himself, I believe I was out of town for work, and just got a text message, hey, I'm going to go to the Braves game with Cooper, and he just went.
We're going to go into a few more specifics in just a little bit. I want to move into another subject now and kind of ask you to tell us a little bit about, by the way, how long were you married to Ross?
9.5 years.
9.5 years. And let's put it this way. How long were you married to him before Cooper died and Ross got arrested?
8 years.
All right. I want you to tell us a little bit about Ross's personality. What kind of character traits or personality did he have?
He always had a very large personality. It's something I can remember as far back as us dating. He grew up in the town that we met in, and we would go out and he would know five different people, in the evening, and he just would talk to everybody. Very outgoing, very vocal. He never met a stranger. It was not unusual for him to, reach out to a person maybe at a table sitting next to us, overhearing their conversation and say, oh yeah, I saw that game too. What do you think about this? He really just didn't meet a stranger. Appeared very confident, very sure of himself, and he liked to be the center of attention.
Did Ross have a tendency to exaggerate?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Because I was with him in several different, situations, like, if he's going to tell a story, I would hear that story several different times. Each time he told that story, it may be a little bit different. There might have been more of whatever he was talking about, or it would have been grander, or he would have gotten more excited about it and talking about it. And I would point that out to him later and say, you realize the last time you told that story, you didn't.
Right.
That's not quite.
Right.
So.
For example, if y'all been to a restaurant 5 or 6 times, he might say, oh, we've been there 100 times.
Yes, that sounds very much like Ross.
All right, what about, what about his attention? Was he the kind of person that was very focused, or was he easily distracted?
I would say he's easily distracted. Trying to think of an example. I would have to, call his attention to things as far as financial. I guess a good example would be, maybe getting a paycheck and forgetting to cash it. Just, those kind of things. Call his attention to time.
What do you mean by that?
We need to leave at 7. Don't start getting ready at 6:50. That was something that was, kind of a common thing. Just didn't really seem to have a huge awareness of, what time we needed to be there, how long it took to get there, and how long it actually took for him to get ready.
Okay. Did you characterize him as absent-minded?
Somewhat, yeah.
What about anger?
Never.
You were married to him for over 9 years. Never's pretty comprehensive. You mean he never got angry?
He never got overly angry.
Okay.
The way that I see anger is if somebody's getting mad at you and you feel like you need to step back.
Mm-hmm.
That was never part of his personality. He was not an angry person. A lot of things didn't really bother him. I mean, he was very even keel, very laid back, and that was the way most of. Sure, we had fights, but there weren't many, drop down and just huge fights that stay in my memory.
Well, you have to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And it obviously can be very stressful at times with a little one in the house. Did you ever see him angry with Cooper?
Not angry at him. Maybe frustrated. Everybody gets frustrated.
Okay. Like what?
Maybe if he was having a particularly difficult time going to bed. We really hadn't gotten to that point where we were, he understood what no meant, but it wasn't, we didn't have there wasn't a lot of, he was just 22 months old, we didn't have a lot of discipline,
Right.
So there was never any, if he did something, like let's say he threw a toy, and he was throwing the toy to get our attention or to bring attention to himself, and we had asked him not to throw that toy, then Ross would very firmly say, no, do not throw that toy. Please do not throw that toy.
You come at general parenting issues.
Right.
Right. Well, did you ever see Ross express anger or hatred or malice toward his son? Ever?
No, never.
Was Ross an emotional kind of person that cried easily, or was he a little more stoic in his personality?
No, it goes back to the anger thing. He stayed in the middle of the spectrum. There wasn't a huge gap of very, very angry over here, very, very sad and depressed over here. He stayed very much in the middle. So there weren't very many situations where he would be just down and sad.
Okay. I've asked you before if you thought that Ross, if you noticed that he had any particular coping mechanisms during times of stress. And do you recall talk to me about that, whether he had any coping mechanisms?
I do. From what I observed over the years, if Ross felt uncomfortable, insecure, he overcompensated with confidence. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It just he just very, just the confidence to kind of suppress the insecurities.
Okay. All right, I want to talk to you just briefly sort of about what y'all's routine or habit or schedule was on a typical day, right? So if you could, walk these folks through what a basic day was like, a work day in your house.
Where Ross worked, there was a daycare on site, so Ross was normally the one to take him to daycare.
But when you say on site, explain to everybody what you mean by that.
There were two separate locations. Ross worked at the treehouse. That's not where the daycare was. The daycare was located at the SSC building, I don't know how far it was from the treehouse, but because it was basically on the way for him, he would take Cooper to daycare. Cooper's daycare was also on the way for me, so if it was a morning that he had something going on, then I would take him. But most of the time, he wanted that time in the morning to spend with him.
Ross wanted the time in the morning to spend with Cooper.
Right.
And what would they do in the morning around the house together?
Well, most of the time I would leave, but before I would leave, they would be sitting in the bed. Maybe Ross was drinking some coffee. Cooper might be eating what he had. We would give him a little, what we called his breakfast snack in the morning. He would always wake up and eat a snack. And I'd put him in the bed with Ross, and they would sit, and I'd turn on some cartoons, and they would watch some cartoons.
Okay. So you're telling us that there was no specific schedule or routine for who's going to take Cooper in the morning?
Objection to leading at this point, Judge.
Was there any specific schedule about who was going to take him on Monday, or Tuesday, or Wednesday, or Thursday, or Friday?
No. It depended. I worked part-time, so I didn't work 5 days a week. It depended on my schedule as well as his schedule. Ross was the primary person to take him to daycare in the morning, but every now and then, maybe once a week, maybe less often than that, I might be the one to take him. I would be the one that picked him up most evenings, but I wasn't always the one that picked him up.
Okay. So, as an example, would it be fair to say that if Cooper went to daycare 4 days a week, Ross would probably take him 3 or 4 of those days?
I would say that's accurate.
Do you pick up part of the time? You pick up part of the time?
I picked up more often than he did. And the reason for that was I got off work earlier most of the time, and so I would just go straight from work and pick him up. Our goal was for him to be in daycare as little as possible.
All right, so where would Cooper typically have his full breakfast then?
Most mornings at the daycare.
All right, daycare being Little Aprons.
Yes.
All right. Are you aware if Ross would call the daycare if he was running late to let them know to hold some breakfast for Cooper?
I wouldn't be there at home when that happened, but he had mentioned that to me before, because I think one morning I mentioned, hey, don't forget daycare serves at 8:30. If he's not there, they won't have breakfast for him.
Okay.
And he said, oh, I'll call him and tell him that we're on our way.
Okay.
They'll hold it for me. I've done it before. Something along that line.
All right. Were you aware that on occasion Ross would actually take Cooper to the Chick-fil-A in Vinings before he took him to the daycare?
Yes.
All right. Was that something that was done every week?
No.
Was it something?
I wouldn't say it was something that was done every week. I don't know how often they went. That's just not something that I can recall. But if they did go, sometimes he would send a picture of the meeting.
Okay. Are you aware if he even took him every month?
No. I know that there was a day where he did send me a picture of Cooper and eating a sausage biscuit at Chick-fil-A, and it said something along the lines of, we're a daddy-son breakfast, we haven't done it in 2 months.
All right. So we got that. Okay. Leanna, I'm going to show you what's been admitted in 281, Joe. Been admitted as Defense Exhibit 81. And this is a printout of text that you and Ross from March the 14th, 2014. Just ask you to kind of review that and see if that's what you're talking about.
Is this just Ross's side? It looks like it's just one side. But I do see the message on it.
The darker one would be
Okay. Yes, that's the one. It's a daddy-son breakfast. We have it in like 2 months.
okay. And that was March 14th.
Yes.
And we asked you to look back through your text, so you knew that text had been sent back in.
Yes. I didn't know the exact date.
Right. That's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Do you have any knowledge or any recollection if Ross took Cooper to Chick-fil-A at all in the month of April or May or any time in June before June 14th?
I don't know.
You didn't receive any pictures that he did.
No.
And if he did, he didn't tell you.
Right. Or if he did, he told me in conversation, and it's been 2.5 years.
All right. Do you know if how was Ross with money, carrying cash or the ability to keep track of his money?
At the time that everything happened, he was the one managing the money. For most of our marriage, I was the one that managed the money. And I think at that point, it was a conversation that we had. I think he really wanted to show me that he could manage the money. I'm just more detail oriented, and I'd have a set budget for everything, and wouldn't always go by it, but I would try to. And Ross, would just he wouldn't spend money on big things, but little things that would add up. Not knowing how many times he ate out in a week and how much that added up, and maybe contributed to some excess spending during that month.
And did you at any time? Did he ever carry cash?
Yeah, he had cash at times. I wouldn't know how much.
Okay. All right. I want to talk to you about a very difficult subject. I'll talk to you about some problems in your marriage, okay? You and Ross had some problems.
Yes.
Tell these people what kind of problems you have.
The way that I would group our problems would be intimacy problems, sexually related. as far as how we got along and how we managed our home and co-parented, everything was very normal. I mean, we didn't fight a lot. We didn't have issues in that aspect. It all came back to the sexual. There was just no sexual relationship. It was very forced. It was very difficult to engage in that with each other. Just a lot of loss in intimacy. I can go into detail about how that started and how I feel like that started.
Well, it's I know that it's difficult for you, but it's something that's is kind of been it's part of the case, and it's obviously part of your relationship. Let's, if you could, just tell the jury basically what the problems were.
Okay. We were married in 2006. The first thing that kind of came up was in 2008. I came home from work one day, and he told me that he had a problem with pornography. He had been talking to a friend of his that day, discussing the issue, and he decided to confess that to me that day. At that time, it wasn't something that, it shocked me, but it wasn't like, I didn't think it was a huge issue. I guess I underestimated the problem. We didn't do any kind of counseling then, didn't seek help. Basically, it was just understanding I'm going to get this under control, and it'll be okay. 2 years after that, probably, and I'm not completely clear on these years, but around 2010, I found a message on his phone that I guess you would describe it as sexting. I didn't see it in that way then. It wasn't something that I had a lot of knowledge of. But the message was, something along the lines of, show me your boobs. And the way that I found it was I was in the bed and his phone was in the bed. I picked up the phone just to see what time it was when I woke up, and I saw the message. Didn't notice what kind of, what it was on or anything. I just...
Did you confront him?
Yes, right then and there.
All right.
That was probably one of our more vivid fights that I can remember. I went into the bathroom, I shut myself in the bathroom, and I asked him to leave. And he wouldn't leave. He wouldn't leave me. He didn't want to leave me.
Okay. Did you, as a result of that, did you do anything?
Yes, we did. We met with our pastor at the time at our church. We set up some what's called Covenant Eyes software on the phone that would track websites that he went to, and would send it to an accountability partner. And we did counseling with the pastor. I can't remember how often.
All right. So what you're telling us, if I understand correctly, this is as far back as 2010 when you found this sexting on his phone?
It was 2010.
Okay. And you said you went to the pastor for counseling. Was Ross willing to go with you and do that?
Yes.
What was, you said Covenant Eyes, what was that?
It was the software that they installed on his computer to track if he went to, the way I understood it was if he went to a website that might be pornography, just for example, it would flag it, and then it would send an email to the accountability partner.
Who was that?
Billy Kirkpatrick.
And who's Billy Kirkpatrick?
He's a friend of ours.
After 2010, when you found this, you started counseling, did the intimacy issues continue?
Yes, it did.
Were there physical issues as well?
It was somewhere between 2008 and 2010. We started having issues with erectile dysfunction, inability to perform, and it was just difficult. My reaction to that wasn't very good. Of course, my first thought is, it's me. There's something wrong with me. He's not attracted to me. And my reaction was not very good. I would get upset, I would cry, and it did a lot of damage to our ability to connect intimately, in my opinion.
Are these the kind of things that you talked about with the counselor?
Once we got into official counseling with a sex therapist, yes.
All right, let's move ahead. Did there come a time in 2013 where this issue reared its head again?
Yes, we had already moved to Atlanta. I think I'm trying to think of the dates.
Right, Cooper was born in August of 2012 to orient you, right?
Right. Something happened in either December of 2012 or January of 2013.
Okay.
I rolled over in bed and I noticed there was something playing on his computer. And I thought it was just a movie. And I said, well, what are you watching? And he just kind of started to shut down a little bit. And he just looked at me and he said, pornography or porn or something like that. And of course I don't think I reacted harshly. I think it was more along the lines of, I thought that we had got this, we had not solved it, but got this, out in the open and under control. And, I don't understand. We were in a small group at that time. The leader of our small group was a counselor.
Leanna, I'm sorry. Explain to these people what you mean by small group, because they may not understand what you mean by that.
We were in a small group with our church. We would get together with maybe about 5 or 6 other couples, and we would study a certain book together. There were a couple of books that we went through at that time. We were going through a book called Sacred Marriage. I contacted the leader of the small group because she was a counselor. She knew the area better. We had only been there for about 6 or 7 months. With Ross's permission to, divulge our very personal, intimate details of our problems, so that she could help us find a counselor that would fit our needs. And so she recommended a counselor, and we started seeing him either in January or February of 2013. I don't know if we had been to counseling yet, but...
Well, before we move on to that, I want to make sure that, to orient everybody, we're still talking about sometime end of 2012, beginning of 2013.
Right.
And you and Ross talked, and you ended up divulging this information to the woman who's the leader of the small group?
Yes.
Who was that?
Bethany Davis.
Okay. And do you have any knowledge if Ross shared this information with the men in the small group?
He did. We were driving one night to the group, and he said, "I'm gonna tell the men what I'm struggling with." And I said, "Well, that's completely up to you." And he said, "I want to do it." And I said, "Well, I'll tell my side to the women."
Leanna, did you want to make your marriage work?
Yes.
Did you love him at the time?
Yes.
Tell us about how counseling went from there.
We started going once a month, and they were hour-long sessions. We went together most of the time, but there were a few occasions where he would have Ross come in by himself, maybe once or twice. And I think I went by myself one time, just so that he could get to know us better, and that we could speak very, very freely.
And what time frame was this?
I would say every month from either January or February of 2013 to towards the end, maybe October, November of 2013.
And in your mind, did it appear to be helping either in the bedroom or emotionally?
We still weren't connecting in the bedroom.
Sexually?
Right.
All right. Did there come a time, sometime in the late summer, early fall of 2013, when Cooper was about 1, where you had a big blow up because you found something on Ross's phone?
Yes.
All right. Tell us about that.
That was the. I picked up his phone, and it was a very similar situation as last time. Just wanted to get a read on the time. We were getting ready to go to dinner. His brother and his wife were there. My brother and sister-in-law. We had a babysitter coming to watch Cooper, and we were going to go to dinner. Picked up his phone and clicked it on, and a message automatically popped up. It wasn't sexual in any way, but I could just tell that it was from a female. And it was, I can't remember the exact word, but it used something like, I know mine, or I know babe, or something like that. And I knew it wasn't from a guy friend. They don't talk to each other like that. And so I exploded. I was very, very angry. I confronted him immediately. I said, we're not going anywhere. You need to go tell your brother why we're not going. You need to go in that room right now and you tell him. And it was the most upset I've probably seen Ross. He was very concerned that I was going to leave him, very concerned that I was going to take Cooper. I thought it was a huge eye-opener.
Did you want to work it out and save your marriage?
Yes. I texted our counselor that night and basically said, we need an emergency session. We need to talk this through.
And was Ross willing to go back to the counselor and talk to the counselor some more?
He was.
Okay.
He never resisted counseling.
Fine. Leanna, since Ross was arrested, you've become aware that there were a lot of sexual issues outside of your marriage going on with Ross, haven't you?
Yes.
During your marriage, did you know that Ross was sending nude photos of his genitals to women?
No, I did not.
Did you know that Ross was had engaged in meeting a woman at a park to have fellatio in his car?
No, I did not.
Did you know that Ross had more than one woman come into your home to engage in sexual acts with him?
No.
Did you know that he would spend time during the day on the telephone talking to various women?
No.
Did you know that he would actually express love for other women? Did you know that he had engaged in sexual acts with a prostitute?
No, and if I had, I would have divorced him then. I would have left.
What if you'd known about any of this stuff?
I would have left. We would have separated. I don't think it would have been able to be, it wouldn't have been able to be undone.
Did, even though you didn't know about these things in particular, y'all had some, you just told us you've had, you found stuff on his phone. You've told us about that.
Right.
Did there ever come where a time where you specifically talked to him about divorce?
Yes. It was probably after the last time something came up.
Early fall of 2013?
Yes.
Okay.
It didn't come from a fight. I just very bluntly one night said, do you want a divorce? If you want a divorce, you can have it. I will give it to you, if that's what you want. And I believe answer back to me was, that's the last thing I want. I do not want that.
Knowing what he did, you now feel like Ross wanted to stay married to you and be able to go run around.
Objection, leading judge.
Based on his answer to you, did you believe that Ross wanted to stay married to you?
Objection, speculation, and hearsay.
Sister.
Did you give him an easy out to the marriage if he wanted it?
Objection, leading again.
That's a yes or no. That could go either way.
Yes, I did.
Outside of the sexual problems in your marriage, I want you to tell us about the other components of the relationship, sort of the family dynamic.
I mean, I think I mentioned before, everything was as a team. We approached everything as a team, whether it was cooking, cleaning, taking care of Cooper. Everything was we will do this together. And so everything was very much, it was shared duties as far as managing a household. Managing money, it was typically one or the other would do it. I did it for the most part of our marriage. He did it for the last 6 months. And, you know, we would be involved in that, obviously, but that was typically more individual. I'm not sure.
Okay. What about common interests? Did as part of your the family dynamic, did that part of the marriage work? Did y'all have common interests?
Ross is very interested in music. I don't have a music background. I think that once we got over into the Atlanta area, we found a more common interest together, which was some hiking. We did some hiking together. That was more the most thing that comes to my mind when I think of things that we did together and we enjoyed together. We enjoyed, going out to dinner, going out to movies, going to Braves games. But I think that the hiking sticks out to me mostly because it was just something that we had newly discovered. We didn't have any, small mountains to hike in where we lived in Alabama, and we were kind of getting into that.
What about your faith? Did y'all share a faith?
Yes.
All right. Tell us about that.
We're Christians, and that's that was the underlying reason for why I did most things in our marriage. I'm a child of divorce. I know what that looks like, and it was not something that we wanted for us. To me, marriage was forever. It was supposed to be forever.
And he obviously violated that trust, didn't he?
Absolutely.
What about family? Did you both share that in common? Did you both want family?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Was Cooper a planned pregnancy?
Very much so.
Tell us about that.
We decided to start trying to get pregnant in February of 2011. We were excited. We didn't know how long it would take. We had some issues with the ED, with the erectile dysfunction. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but he also had a diagnosis of low testosterone. which can cause the erectile dysfunction, but it can also cause a decrease in sperm. We started trying in February. Several months went by, 6-7 months. I was very discouraged, negative pregnancy test after negative pregnancy test. I would get very upset, very down, and was, very much almost obsessed with it. Like I would check my temperature and do ovulation tests to make sure I was ovulating and the timing was right. And he was supportive of me through all that. He wanted it too. It was never something that he said, well, why don't we just stop and see what happens. He was supportive in everything that I was doing to try to help us get pregnant. I went to my OBGYN doctor and made sure everything was okay with me. We did have testing done for him too to make sure that he was normal. Things were low but still considered normal.
You both had physical tests?
Mm-hmm.
If I understand correctly, because the pregnancy wasn't happening as quickly as you wanted.
Right. I was concerned that we wouldn't be able to get pregnant.
Okay.
So I went to my doctor. She did, examine me, and I discussed other. She was the one who recommended that I get the ovulation test and try that, make sure that I'm ovulating, and that they would test Ross's sperm to see if there were any issues there.
Okay. And did that happen? And did that happen?
Did they test it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they tested it, and it was normal, but on the low end of normal. I don't remember the exact test, but I finally got to the point where I was so upset about it every single month that I kind of decided to just kind of chill a little bit. That's what everybody says, when you're trying to get pregnant. You're not going to get pregnant, so if you just kind of lay back and, see what happens, it tends to happen easier. And I finally got pregnant in November of 2011.
Was Ross happy about that?
Yes, we found out that we were pregnant on his birthday, and he was very excited.
I want to move into another area, Leanna. I want to talk a little bit about kind of what you went through on June the 18th of 2014. And I want to start with, I guess that morning, did you, was that a work day for you?
It was. I was working I was covering a clinic in Conyers, so I think that was about a 45-mile commute for me, one way. And so I left pretty early that morning, somewhere around 7, somewhere between 7 and 7:30.
So that would have been a day that Ross was going to take
Right.
you for the daycare. And as far as you knew, that's what he did.
Right.
Did y'all discuss that morning that he was going to go to Chick-fil-A?
No.
Did you have much communication with Ross throughout the day?
We texted a few times throughout the day. I texted him and asked him if he had to work okay. That was pretty common. It was something that I would do. It would range from did Cooper enjoy his breakfast at school to did you get to work okay? How are things going today? Things like that, just to kind of check in.
And on that particular day, we've asked you to look back at your text messages. And do you remember specifically what you texted him that day?
I believe it was, did you make it to work okay, or did you get to work okay?
Did you have any other communication with him later on in the afternoon by text message?
I want to say that he texted me about the movie time that he was going to go to. There was a text. He asked me what time, when I was going to go pick up Cooper. There was a little bit of discussion about who would be the best person to pick up Cooper that day. I think that we talked about that on the phone. Because I didn't know, at that time I didn't know the exact movie time he was going to. I didn't know if maybe he would want to pick him up and us meet at home. So there was some discussion about that. But it was decided that I would be the one to pick him up.
All right. Give me just one moment. I'm going to look for one piece of evidence. Leanna, I'm going to show you what has been admitted into evidence in the defense exhibit 68. This is, it says extraction report. This is texting that came from Ross's phone. I'm going to ask you to take a look at that and see if you recognize that.
I do.
Is that the text messaging between you and Ross on June 18th?
Yes.
So if you would confirm what it was specifically that you texted to Ross.
Get to work okay.
What was his response?
Yep.
And what else did y'all text throughout the day?
Right after the yep, he said, we're going to go to an early movie, so I should be home close to 7. And I responded back about an hour and a half later and said, okay. And then at 3:16, he asked me when you getting my buddy? And I texted back about 45 minutes later and said, call me, or you're not going home first. And I think that's when we had the phone conversation about who would be the best person to pick up Cooper that day.
So when so the text we see here also, when are you getting my buddy? 3:16 that afternoon? You agree he didn't ask you at that point, he didn't ask, are you getting my buddy? Yes.
When? Yes. At 3:16.
That phrase, my buddy, is that a phrase that you've heard before?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
He referred to Cooper a lot as his little buddy. My buddy, we both did it, but Ross used it more commonly, and I probably kind of picked it up a little bit because of him.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and jump forward to the afternoon. You showed up at the Labrans, right?
Right.
Do you remember about what time you got there that afternoon?
I really don't. It was probably somewhere between 4:30 and 5. I think I left Conyers around 4, and it would have taken me about 15 minutes to get over there.
Were you expecting to pick Cooper up that day at the Labrans?
Yes.
So what happened when you got there?
I walked into the daycare just like any other day. They have a computer system that you check the child in and out, and I went to check him out, and he wasn't checked in for the day. But that's happened before, so it really didn't strike me as very odd. And I went ahead back to his room and opened the door, and started looking around for him because he would normally be playing. The teacher that was there, she looked at me and she said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm here to get Cooper, and I'm just looking around for him. And she said, well, Cooper's not here. And I didn't understand. I thought she was joking. I may have even said to her, are you joking? And, kept looking around for him. And she said, he didn't come today. And I just kind of went into a panic. I didn't know what to do. I left the room, ran down to the front desk, and the guy that was there, I said, they're telling me Cooper wasn't checked in today. Where's Cooper? I can't find Cooper. I don't remember the exact words I said. I was starting to lose my ability to understand what was going on. It didn't make sense. Cooper was supposed to be a daycare. I was supposed to be the one to pick him up. It didn't make sense.
Who was that person at the desk, Leanna?
I'm pretty sure it was Terrell. It had to have been Terrell.
Did you stick around?
No. I wanted to. The only thing that made sense to me, based on everything that I knew that day, Ross must have left him in the car. That was the only thing that made sense. It was the only thing that flipped in my mind as even a remote possibility. He was never checked in. If he was never checked in, then he must have forgot.
Okay, and
So I told him, I said I would go over to where Ross works and I would find his car. I didn't know how they were going to the movie. I didn't know if they were going to carpool. I didn't know if they were going to meet. I wanted to get to where I knew Ross could possibly be. I tried to call him. I couldn't get him on the phone. And they tried to get me to stay. And I said, I'm not staying anywhere. I need to find my son and I need to find my husband. And so they had Terrell come with me. That's why I know he had to be the one at the desk. They had him come with me. And we drove over to the treehouse. I looked in the parking lot for Ross's car, and I didn't see it. So we went inside. Once we were inside, I had probably tried to call. I don't even know how many times I tried to call Ross. I tried to call him every 2 or 3 minutes. It just kept going straight to voicemail. And so we went inside, and we were trying to figure out when Ross left work, because I didn't know what time he had left. So the guy that was at the front desk, he said, who are you looking for? We told him his name. I said he was planning on going to a movie with a friend. What's his friend's name? I can only remember Winston. I couldn't remember his last name. So they looked him up in the computer. My phone was dying. I was trying to keep my phone charged because I kept thinking, I'm going to get Ross on the phone in a minute and everything's going to be fine. We're going to get this straightened out. It just, none of it made sense. I was going back and forth to my car and putting my phone on the charger so that I could call Ross, try to get in touch with him. Things start to get very fuzzy as to when they happened or how long it took. I don't know how long we were at the treehouse.
let's talk about the lobby. Do you remember sitting in the lobby of the treehouse? Do you remember there being television screen?
Yes.
I know you said it's become hazy, but
the best of your recollection, what happened there as the news was on the television in the lobby?
Because I was going back and forth from my car to the inside of the lobby, Terrell and the guy that was there, they were behind the desk, I guess I think that time they were trying to figure out when Winston left. And I came back in at one point, and I saw them watching the TV. I didn't see what was on the TV, but I saw that they were interested in something on the TV, and I said, "What's going on?" And Terrell said, "Well," basically he kind of said, "Well, nothing," and they turned it off or changed the channel. I'm not sure which one they did. I didn't see what was actually on the TV. I went back and forth to my car. Like I said, I do not know how many times. Sometimes I would just sit out there and try to figure out what to do. I actually had one of the daycare teachers call me and said, "Leanna, I think it's time to call the police." And I didn't. In my mind, I was thinking, everything's fine. This is not that it's fine, but I was in complete denial about the situation. And I was actually looking at my phone trying to figure out how to call police because there's nothing I've had to do before. Trying to figure out what I would do, what I would say, and my phone rang, and it was a detective. They told me to stay where I was, that they were going to come to me. I said, "Will you please just tell me what's wrong? I know something's wrong." And they said, "No, we're going to talk about it when we get there." And I said, "Well, it's bad, isn't it?" And he said, "Yeah, it's bad. We're coming there, just stay there."
Tell us what happened then when the detectives showed up at the treehouse lobby where you were.
You,
Tell us what happened when the detectives showed up at the treehouse lobby where you were.
before the detectives got there, I went back in, and I sat down on the couch, and I could feel myself start to go numb. It was like I wasn't even in my own body, and I was just sitting there, and Terrell sat down next to me, and I said, "You know what's going on, don't you?" Because I could just tell that they knew something. And he said, "Well, do you want me to tell you?" And I think I made the comment, like, what does it matter if you tell me or guys that I don't know come tell me what's wrong? I said, do you know what's wrong? And he said, all I know is that they said that a child died, and it was Ross's car on the news. He said, that's all I know. When the detectives got there, they took me into a conference room and sat down with me. I can remember walking to the conference room thinking, I'm going to wake up. This isn't real. This isn't happening.
And what did they tell you?
And they told me that my son was deceased. I can't remember exactly. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know if Ross was okay. I didn't know I didn't know anything. And I just wanted them to tell me what had happened. I needed more information. And I wasn't believing what they were saying. It just wasn't real.
Yeah, Were you aware that that conversation had been recorded?
I'm aware now. I wasn't aware then.
You
I
had-
don't think so. I don't remember.
Okay. Have you had a chance to hear yourself during that interview at the treehouse?
I don't. I didn't even recognize myself.
What do you mean?
It was like another person took over my body. It was like I wasn't even there. I couldn't understand. I didn't, it wasn't real, and sometimes it still doesn't feel real.
Were you able to cry when you were talking to the detectives?
No. I wasn't, and I didn't understand why. They just told me this, and I can't even cry, and I didn't understand why.
After you talked to the detectives at the treehouse, where did you go from there?
They took me to my apartment. They needed a key. They told me that they were going to be getting a search warrant for our home, and that it was part of the normal process, and asked me if I would be willing to give them a key. And so they drove me over to our home, and I gave them the key, and they passed it on to whoever was there. My neighbor was there, and I wanted to see somebody that I knew that they lived on the scene.
Who was that person?
Joey Nesbitt,
Who wouldn't let you see that person?
the detectives.
Where did you go from your apartment?
They drove me to the, I believe it was the Cobb County Police Headquarters.
Were you in handcuffs?
No.
To the best you can remember what was going on, can you tell these folks sort of what happened when you got into the lobby of the police department?
They didn't take me into the lobby. They took me in through, I guess, a side door. Things get very fuzzy. And by fuzzy, I mean, like, I don't know how long things lasted. There are things that stick out in my memory. There are things that I completely lost. I remember that they sat me down in a chair that was it looked like there were cubicles or desks kind of sitting around in that area. And they just basically told me that I would get to see Ross and to just basically sit there and wait.
Did you have anybody with you?
No. I had a couple of the daycare teachers out in the lobby. I asked if I could be with them. They wouldn't let me be with them either.
Is this a good time for her?
It's fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, close your eyes. Keeping it in mind, we'll discuss the matter and the charges companies will take a minute.
Let's all rise and go, please.
decision we made,